This was a super fun collaboration between friends, just getting together and figuring something different we could all do. Between Jonathon from Painted Love, Other Man's Treasure with Daniel, and Kacha Furniture, we decided all to get together and challenge ourselves with the Annie Sloan color palette and see what we could do just to create something different and challenge ourselves with what we could do individually, just with the same color palette. We all had a chance to pick one color from a hat and see what we could come up with. This was a lot of fun. We just thought it would be really fun to get together and converse about different ideas and what we could do with the color palette. So by choosing random colors and each of us pick one, see what we could do if we pull it together. And it was a real challenge. The colors that were chosen didn't quite coordinate together on their own as a solid. But to see what we could do to mix them and give a whole new makeover to this cabinet will be a fun challenge. By mixing complementaries, you can darken colors, you can even lighten colors, or you can make really beautiful complementary grays with color undertones to them. The random colors that got chosen was Louis Blue, Scandinavian Pink, Antibes Green, and Giverny Blue. So it was a really interesting combination, so it's going to be fun just to keep playing around to see what other colors I could create from these four colors. I was pleasantly surprised to see the color mixes that I came out with. I never would have put this color palette together otherwise had we not done this challenge, and I'm really glad we did. I actually had a lot of fun taking little bits of each color and randomly mixing them together to see what other hues and undertones I could create. I was also really determined only to use the colors that we chose in this challenge. Annie Sloan's color palette in her paints do not have any black in them, so when I actually pour pure colors together, you can be really pleasantly surprised what colors you can mix together. The project that I'll be working on is a bit of a challenge because the wood is very porous as well as it's not great condition. And of course there's all this paint in here. So I'm going to clean my piece really well with regular degreasing dish soap. Then I'm going to go and put my neutral down as my base color, then add the colors that I'm going to mix together. So I chose French linen. It's a very light taupe neutral, so I think this will be a great foundation color to put as my base before I go and use all the colors that I've mixed. And I'm really pleasantly surprised with the way the colors did mix together, and I'll show you exactly what I did. I'm going to apply 2 thin coats to this piece as it is black, and I want to make sure that I've got really good coverage because of the really dark undertone. I'm going to paint the inside and the outside because I have kind of an idea in my mind where I'm going to go with my color mixes. And I'd really like to do something for the inside as well as the outside. So what I ended up doing was mixing Giverny as well as Scandinavian Pink. This was going to be the interior. For my exterior, I decided to use that Louis Blue and Antibes Green. All of what I've mixed is a 1-to-1 ratio, and the colors turned beautiful. I love how it doesn't take away from one, but it adds another. The Louis Blue and Antibes Green came out exactly how I had planned when I did my color mixing. With the Scandinavian Pink and the Giverny Blue, it almost had a nice gray tone into it, but not taking it away from the blue. I absolutely fell in love with this mix, so I'm going to paint the entire interior of this cabinet with this new blue mix color I created. I'm really impressed with a lot of the color shades I was able to create by using these 4 colors, and I'm looking forward to actually implementing that into future projects. It is a beautiful way to lighten, soften, or even darken a color that you already love, and be able to create it exactly how you'd like it. The paddle brush is great for working on an interior. This way you don't have a handle in your way that's going to hit the shelving, as well as using the artist brush to get into the corners. For this, I wanted to try something different of a technique that I don't normally do. And what I'm doing is waxing my base coat, that French linen first, then I'm going to go with my next step after I've waxed. So after I've completed the clear wax over my neutral color, I want to make sure that that wax isn't dry, so I have to immediately do the color wash right after. So what's going to happen is the color wash is not going to penetrate into the base color with that wax. It's actually going to repel it a little bit, but this is where I'm going to be using a little bit of a thicker wash mix and a little bit of a thinner wash mix, and this is going to create this really random texture by doing a color wash with that little bit of wax between your base coat and your color wash. It gives a really organic effect. What I really like about adding the wax step in before the paint wash is the paint wash is actually going to have certain areas that the wax is actually going to repel it a little bit. And this gives it a really neat effect. Now, because the wax is not cured, some of the paint wash will absorb to the base color, but some of it won't. And this is where this ultra textured look comes from when you use the wax in between the base and the color wash. If you haven't done a color wash before, I recommend just to make a pre-made wash of 1 part paint to 1 part water. So I decided to also add some decoupage paper, and I will leave these in my description box below. And this is actually going to create a lot of dimension to this piece and also really make it pop. I also wanted it to give a little bit more movement to the design of this piece. So I'm just going to use Mod Podge, and I'm also going to be using some cling wrap to apply the decoupage paper. But I've never done this before by actually doing a color wash over the decoupage. So once the decoupage is applied and I've cut off the trims of them, I'm just going to use a sanding block at a 45-degree angle just so that way I can make nice clean cuts. Then I'm going to apply my wash right over the decoupage. I really loved how the color wash technique worked with using the wax in between. So it really kind of changed my outlook on what I was going to do next. So I let everything completely dry, and now I'm going to add in this other decoupage to the interior. And I think it's really going to make it pop. Because the panels on the interior are recessed in, I'm going to have to cut the decoupage paper before I can apply it. Then I decided I'm going to use a stencil, and I just wanted to add in a little extra embellishment to the shelving on the inside. So I'm going to use the outside color inside on top of that stencil. The shelving itself is not very deep, so I just wanted to find a stencil that was kind of small and just gives a little added dimension to the interior of the cabinet. So I ended up doing the color wash onto the inside of the cabinet panels, and I also went over the decoupage also using the color wash in the ragging technique. And this really brought all the colors together, even over top of the decoupages, both on the outside and the inside. Once everything's completely dry, I will use clear wax to seal the whole project. Then I decided to also add in a little bit of that silver gilding wax just to kind of highlight the hardware back to a metal look again. Then just for added definition as well as some highlights, the exterior panels, I just went around with some white wax just to give it some highlight around those darker decoupages. I always really enjoy giving highlights and sometimes even lowlights to furniture pieces. Then I'm just going to add in a little white speckling. I love doing this. It just kind of gives a little bit of a vintage vibe and adds a beautiful texture. What was really fun about this challenge was getting together at the end once we were completed all our projects and conversing over everything that we had gone through, the color mixing, what we had done, and we had so much fun. And it was really fun that Annie Sloan herself joined us and to reveal all the projects to one another. It was an absolute blast. I would really like to show you exactly what Daniel, Jonathon, and Kacha did with their projects as well. Picking out these random 4 colors and 1 neutral and seeing what everybody did, it was really amazing with what everybody created. If you have an idea for a challenge, I would love to hear. Leave me a comment in the comment box below about your challenge idea. Check out Kacha, Jonathon, and Daniel on their social links. I will leave them in my description box below, and you can check out all of the steps and techniques in which they've done to create with their color palette. Thank you so much for joining me in this week's video, and a special thank you to Kacha, Jonathon, and Daniel, and Annie for joining me in this collaboration. I'm really looking forward to seeing you soon. Until then, take care.